Hello and welcome, Inspired Podcast community. This is your new episode. My name is Caroline, and my today's guest is Fidel Zebahizi. And I'm so happy he said yes to our interview. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, ma'am. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you again. And I would like to introduce you to the audience. You grew up in a poor African village and survived an ethnically motivated massacre in a United Nations refugee camp in Burundi, overcoming tremendous challenges as an immigrant in the US. You became the first immigrant to serve as a police officer for the, you have to help me with the name, Abby Lane? Lean?
Abilene.
Abilene Police Department in Texas. He also holds multiple degrees, including a PhD in criminal justice, Homeland security. Your story is one of perseverance and achievement, inspiring others to reach for the American dream despite adversity. Welcome to the Inspired Podcast, Fidel Zebahizi.
Thanks so much for inviting me.
Wow. And my first question for you is, how did your experiences in Burundi shape your decision to pursue a career in law enforcement in the US?
That's a good question. So I experienced a rough uh, experience or situation back in Burundi in a United Nations refugee camp where I expected to be protected. I expected to high protection from probably the first or one of the first international organizations on this planet, the United Nations. In addition to the Burundi government that was hosting us, but that did not occur, unfortunately. And we only lived in the refugee camp for 2 months before the only section of the refugee camp, which was ours, was attacked by multiple heavily armed groups from the region. So the refugee camp was built in two parts. It had two sections, different sections. One section housed Burundian refugees that were returning from other refugee camps from other countries. So they were coming back. So they housed them in that section of the camp before they went back to their houses or to their villages or whatever they were from in Burundi. The other half housed Congolese refugees, which uh, was mainly composed of the Banyamulenge ethnic group members. So during the attack, they just picked our section of the refugee camp, and both sections were like probably a few meters apart, and they were facing each other, but they just passed, and they attacked our section of the camp from the Congo Burundi border, which that's where the other half of the refugee camp was aligned or was located. So they had to pass that section of the refugee camp to come to ours to attack us, and then they went back the same way. So it was just it was a simple attack and a target on us. So uh, to answer your question, that shaped my understanding, or I was like, if you know, if like a big or a big international organization as the United Nations failed us miserably that way, I was like, I need to do something. I need to make a difference. I need to, to see how protecting somebody, protecting people, protecting the general population feels like. That was one of the reasons why I decided to join the Abilene Police Department. But going back farther back, like many years back, I grew up in a persecuted environment. My ethnic group was discriminated against. The Banyamulenge were discriminated against back home in the Congo. Even as we speak right now, we're still going through the same situation. So, I grew up with uh, a law enforcement disappointment, if you call it. You know, secure forces. When you expect somebody to do something on your behalf, but they fail you miserably, sometimes you feel like you need to try that yourself to see how it feels.
Ah, I understand. So
Yeah.
you cannot say you changed sides. No, we cannot say this. Maybe your purpose was to make this world a better place, of course, and your topic is protection. You talked about that. Thank you so much for sharing. My next question is, what were the biggest challenges you faced as an immigrant becoming the first police officer from your community in the US?
Oh yeah. So I just wrote a book and I dedicated one chapter, chapter 6. It talks about just challenges in general, like being a police officer in the United States. It's not easy in general. Not even just the United States. Throughout the world, it's not easy to be a police officer nowadays. But to be a police officer with heavy accent from Africa, that adds to that challenge, to that tough situation or experience being a police officer in the United States. I talk about how it was really hard for me to join and to go through the entire academy, especially with my I went back to my accent, how my accent played out, and how it was hard for like dispatchers to understand me over the radio. Communication is a huge thing. If you don't have communication, working with other people, especially in an intense, environment, like, you have to think like within seconds and react within seconds. But if you struggle with accent, with a language, that becomes even harder. So yes, I struggled a lot to become a police officer with a heavy accent.
Wow. What did you do about your accent?
I don't know. I just kept going. I didn't have the option to give up. I remember one time when I was going through the second phase of the training, which is on job training, being with a trainer. I remember trying to communicate over the radio, and whenever you know dispatch could not understand me, I had to use the phone. I had to go to the police station to use the phone, for a better understanding. They'll be like, yeah, I'll be like, maybe I'll tell them just stand by, and then I'll drive to the station, and sit down and take my time to communicate and send a message over the phone instead of over the radio, where you don't have enough time to explain yourself.
Yes, that's really interesting because it's about communication and it always has to do with two sides as well, the sender and the receiver, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah.
I remember one time, one of the stories that I wrote in my book. Um, so yeah, there was a call. Somebody just called in for advice, and it was my area of patrol. So that call was sent to me, of course, and it was just a citizen who wanted to talk to a police officer over the phone. So I called her, and I don't know. Maybe she thought that I was somebody from India, somebody from I don't know. Who knows? And she probably didn't, believe that I was a police officer with my accent. So she hung up and she called back. She told dispatch, you know what? Can I have a native Texan? Somebody, a native from Texas, to talk to me, not this guy. That felt rough. That was I was like, this is it. But fortunately, it was not the first thing that I experienced. But good thing is that I didn't give up. I didn't. I was disappointed. Yes. Just in that moment, and then I moved on. I was like, yeah, this is it. This is part of my job. I have a heavy accent, and there's nothing I can do about this. So this is what I have. I need to deal with this. in a positive way, of course. Yeah.
Wow, it's so interesting what you say, because yeah, you talked about difficulties, but I would have never thought about it's the language or the accent, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you don't think about those things. You
Oh
think, for
yes.
example, I would think when because I'm not into the police,
Hmm.
like what you learn there. I don't know what you learn there. So I would think there are other challenges, you know, but not that one, of course.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah. We have a lot of challenges, but that got me a lot because I was seen as just a stranger, a foreigner,
Mhm.
somebody invading somebody's rights when I was doing my, lawfully, you know, accepted job. I was, I'm in a police force. I was hired legally. I'm here legally. I'm doing. I'm not somebody who just came from nowhere and started enforcing the law here, right? I went through the proper training. I received the proper training that everybody receives. But when we deal with people who are upset about life, about what they're going through, they're trying to blame others for whatever that is happening in their lives. They choose their battles, right? So if they can pick to use your heavy accent, which is not the reason why you're there, which is not the reason why they're going through that, right? They're gonna blame that, and yeah, and then it's gonna be up to you to deal with that.
Oh, it's so interesting. You know what? I could talk for hours because I had so many thoughts now about, for example, when I imagine, okay, let me imagine because I'm in Germany here. I have my accent, so I have the
Yeah,
same
yeah,
problem, so to say.
yeah.
But when I imagine someone calls the police or someone wants to talk with you, for example, for help, when
Hmm.
they have already a problem, right? And
Yes.
then when
Oh yeah.
you and they hear the accent and they don't understand you, or they pretend they don't understand you, they want to talk to someone else, they create a new problem.
Hmm.
Yeah.
It's an escape for
Mm.
them, right? They're trying to, run away from the problem they're having by blaming what has nothing to do with the problem.
Yes,
You know
I
that
would
that
have
that.
the hope. Mhm.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
I would have the hope that they forget about the first problem. This would be
Yeah.
great. It is like distraction from the first problem, then it would be a win, right?
But yeah, it never becomes a win because
Yeah.
they forget. I mean, they put aside a problem and they create another one, as you just mentioned, and they use that now you're dealing with a new problem when you are there to fix the problem, the initial problem.
I think it's a very important message here. It's a hidden message, a secret, because most of the people overlook this. So they take this as an excuse to create more problems, and they don't understand the whole situation. So the world could be more peacefully if we
Yeah, and
don't.
so yes, another example was I got a call to a a subject who was refusing to leave somebody's property, somebody's home. So it's a criminal trespass. Somebody was there without their permission, or they were being told to leave, but they had refused. Right. So I got called there, and uh, so and I had a backup officers, two of them. So we showed up. The guy still refused. So we had to proceed with, taking him down to the floor and put handcuffs on him. And you are living this house, regardless if you like it or not. But we have to use the force to remove you, right? So, uh, so going back to what you just explained or talked about, he forgot about the reason why we're there, right? And then when we were just struggling with him, I said something. We were telling him, hey, listen to us, don't fight about, don't do this, do this. So he just turned around to me, not to other officers. I'm gonna say this because that way my message can make sense. So the backup officers were white, right? And I was the only black African, right, with heavy accent. And he was a black too, but from the United States. So he turned around and he just targeted my heavy accent. He forgot his problem. He forgot the reason why we were there, and he forgot that he was the problem. If he was not a problem, we would not been there, right? So what happened was he started insulting me. He was like, "Hey, who brought you here? Why are you here?" And then he was like, "Go back to Africa. Go back to Africa. Who brought you here?" And then I just laughed. I was like, in my head, I was like, "You are the problem. Don't worry about the reason why I'm here. Don't worry about my heavy accent. Just deal with your problem, fix your problem, and move on." Right?
I love that. Thank you
Yep.
so much because it changes it changes perspective totally.
Yep.
I love
Yep.
that. It has it really because it makes me think as well. And we have to think, everyone has to think in situations we are in and we think we are the one with the right. We
Right.
have the right or we are right. And it's
Hmm.
not the case.
That's right. That's right.
That's right.
That
And
that that has given me a lot of experience. How just about the human nature. We are just beasts. Human beings are just beasts. We are very difficult.
really, yes.
Yeah.
But you made the right choice as well to choose your profession and your
Yes.
path as well. And I love what you said about you choose your battle. You use these words, I
Yes.
love words so much. Choose your battle.
Yeah. If I worried too much about I don't know if I need to call it being discriminated because of being discriminated against because of my accent or heavy accent, I would have quit a long ago. But
Mm.
I chose not to quit just because of that reason. That's not a reason for me to quit because I signed up for this job. I knew this was going to be hard. Just to begin with, just being a police officer is not easy. But being a police officer with a heavy accent, it's even challenging. It's more challenging. So now I was like, yeah, it's not your choice. What do you choose? Well, choose your battle. If you need to quit, if you just move on, it's not gonna go away. You're gonna deal with people who are going to discriminate you against. But what do you need to what do you want to do? What are you gonna do? It's their right to say whatever they want. It's their right to insult you. It's their right to call you names. So that's their right. They can use their right to do that, whether you like it or not. It is what it is. So you choose what to do.
Absolutely. And I love what you chose to show us that
Yeah.
it's possible. You also talked about the American dream, which is possible for everyone. And I have my biggest problem was the accent I don't like. So I have this German accent and I don't
Uh-huh.
like it. But when you realize that, let's say 99% of the people that speak English are not English native speakers or whatever, so I deal all the time, I deal with people not speaking like, and I don't care anymore. I was so hesitating starting this podcast or speaking at all to native speakers. I was like ashamed because I make mistakes, right? And
So
this. Mhm.
think this way. What do you think people when people speak your native language and they're not German? What happens? How do you what do you hear, right? Same thing, right? They have heavy accent when they speak German when they're not Germans, right? So same thing. So we are all humans. We just need to understand each other, and move on. I can't just stop doing what I need to do just because I can. I'm not native to the English language. That's not the excuse. That's not a problem. I used to think like that. Even right now, even nowadays, even sometimes happens, and I think like, oh, what am I going to say? What am I going to tell people who are, Native Americans? I mean, or they were born in the United States, but I was not. I came here when I was 25. My English is very heavy. English accent is very heavy, but I have something to provide. I have something to offer. I have something that they don't have. So, but if I don't use the language that they understand, what's gonna happen? Then I'm gonna be blocked. I'm gonna be, limited. I'm gonna be prevented from, expressing myself. You know.
So when I traveled the US last year for a month or so, and I came across people living there 7 years or so and not able to speak English at all, let's
Oh
say.
yes.
And I communicated with, it was not with language, it was like energy or love. I always say love is the universal language, and you
Yeah.
understand
Yeah.
the feeling or the vibration, or if someone is a nice person or not, you feel this, right?
Yeah. That's right. That's
Mm.
right.
And what you said about you are here to serve the people. So in fact, you are doing a service, rendering a service, of course, and you have a calling as well. You followed your calling, you have a mission, and you stand there for this mission. It's and to show people. And I don't understand. You don't use the word worth, but it's like some people feel more worthy because they are native or whatever, or they don't have an accent or something like that. But it's we are all humans, that's so right, and we have all the same birthright, so to say. We are all the
Yeah.
same, from the same creator, let's say, if you want to put it like that. Okay, I have one last question for you.
Hmm.
Just a second. How do you see your background influencing your approach to criminal justice and homeland security?
So my background within the criminal
Yeah,
justice system here.
I can repeat it. How do you see your background influencing your approach to criminal justice and homeland security?
So, we are all equal here in the United States. My background, I don't think would prevent me from, moving forward within the criminal justice system here in the United States, because as long as I qualify for, let's say, a position within the system, I'll be able to get it without being discriminated against or without being pushed back just because of my background. So, and I see it this way because my background is wealth. It's something that is needed here in the United States because the country has millions of immigrants. So if they don't have anybody from that section of the population serving within the system, it's going to be tough. It's going to be hard for others to serve that particular community, that particular American community or new American community. So immigrants, we hear the country received us, and they received us to advance it, to advance the country, to serve the country, to serve the community, right? So if I get discriminated against based on my background, then what is the point of bringing me here, right? So I don't see that. So I see my background as something in addition to what the United States needs.
Absolutely. Thank you so
Yes.
much for your answer. And of course, I would love you talked about your book, right? Was it your book?
Yes, yes. I recently published a book, a new book. Uh, it's called "Creating a Life from the Ashes," a memoir. Because the book contains a lot of stories, struggle and success stories, just to show my fellow human beings that it's possible to achieve the American dream or whatever dream. It's not just the American dream. We call it the American dream here because we are given a lot of opportunities, but not not all people chase those opportunities. They use other excuses and they don't do nothing. They just sit down and relax and watch TV. But we are given tons of opportunities in the United States to advance ourselves and advance the country. So I wanted, my readers to see that we are given a lot of opportunities. So we need to use them to advance ourselves, our families, and the country.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. I'm deeply inspired now after our interview. Thank you so much. And please reach out to Fidel. He's amazing. He has a message to share, of course. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Now is time for your final thoughts to the audience, please.
Yeah, my philosophy is to be determined. When you have determination, when you decide to do something, to accomplish something in your life, be your own timekeeper. I tend to write like a step-by-step plan how I'm gonna accomplish something, and then it doesn't matter how long it takes me. I go back to that plan, read and reread it. Make sure that is step one done, step two done. And you write down like a time frame how you're gonna when do you think you're gonna accomplish first step, second step, third step, and make sure that you are determined enough and don't use others as excuses. Just rely on yourself and be there. You will accomplish it. You will accomplish your goal regardless. I am a very positive person, and yes, sometimes we fail, sometimes we don't make it, but most of the time, if you don't have other like contributing factors, like using others excuses or the situation that you are in, I've experienced a lot, and I talk about that in my book. It's possible to achieve whatever you want to achieve. So be yourself, be your own timekeeper, and things are gonna go well.
Oh, I love that. Be your own timekeeper and check
Yes.
out the book. It's amazing. It's an amazing story. It's a great example for me. Really, for me, you are a leading example, leading by example. Thank you so much for our interview
Yes, ma'am. Thanks so much again for having me, for inviting me.
and see you in the next episode.